way, but I will just give you a thumbs up when I think we're going.
Hello everybody, and a warm welcome to you all, our lovely Garment Makers Question Time members and all keen sewers. We are about to have a long bank holiday weekend here. So we've got Good Friday tomorrow, and then we've got Easter Sunday and Easter Monday. So this is a lovely little time to chat to you before we all go off and do something nice. David has got a family birthday luncheon tomorrow with 6 family members, and my husband has surprised a night away in a smart hotel, but I'm not allowed to know where. The only thing I do know is that we start off, and this is for the Yorkshire people and especially the English people, we start off with a trip to Barnsley Market for possibly a bite of lunch. So I'll let you know about it next time if I remember. Anyway, I'm going to hand you over to David so he can welcome you.
Hi everybody, hopefully you can hear us all loud and clear. I'll just say hello to a few people. Jackie Peters, you get the award tonight for the first person commenting from wet and windy Hertfordshire. Deb Dell, Delaroy, I know you've got a question in the questions tonight, and you're from Boston. Susan Anderson said hi from miserable Ripon in North Yorkshire, and then we were chuckling away because later on you put I meant miserable weather. Ripon itself is fabulous. Well, we know that Ripon is fabulous, so welcome to you, Susan. Antari's here from Buckinghamshire. Deborah Chancellor says hello and happy Easter, so welcome to everybody.
Yeah, it's always nice to know where you are. And we had the Quilters Question Time on Tuesday, and everybody told us it was raining. But it's not raining, is it, David? No. And the clock's changed this weekend, so we get an extra long day coming along, which I'm very excited about. Makes all the difference, makes me want to get in my garden, and I'm sure that's the same for lots of you. So we have 18 very varied questions with lots of photographs that David's going to have to try and get ready. David's got to do so many different things that is a bit tricky. Peter is around somewhere, but he's not around just yet. Peter, my husband, in case you don't know, usually draws the 2 numbers out of my special number bag for 2 lucky winners who are going to win a prize this evening. So let me explain what, and then Peter might come along, and if he doesn't, I will have to do it. So we have been and we are filming the Chanel jacket class. How many weeks have we been filming, David?
It's about 40, I think. Certainly 40 days and 40 nights.
We're into week 3 and we're not finished yet. But I don't want to worry you. That is because there's quite a lot of hand sewing in this particular project. And so the filming can only be done once the hand sewing of the next step is completed. And so it's taking us a while. And unfortunately, David was poorly on Tuesday. We're much better today, aren't you, David? So anyway, because of that, I have done some hand sewn buttonholes with silk buttonhole thread in the Chanel jacket project. It's not the only way. I give you the option of doing machine sewn buttonholes, but I have got some lovely silk buttonhole thread. So 2 winners are going to receive 6 spools, reels of silk buttonhole thread. So there is a black, a red, and a kind of a pinky lilac-y grey colour. There's 10 metres per roll, and an average kind of inch-long hand-sewn buttonhole takes about a yard or a metre. So 20, you can make 20 red buttonholes, 20 lilac buttonholes, and 20 black buttonholes. And some of my postcards there. And then just another little thing here. A little bit of lace, which I like to use on the front edges of jackets, and I sometimes use it on shoulder seams for strengthening and stabilising the edge, so that I prefer it to cotton tape. It's finer and it does the job, but it kind of blends away more easily. So I've put a little bit of that in for our 2 lucky winners. So Peter, come and draw 2 numbers out.
That's right.
He's been working, building, renovating all day, and he's really tired. Tell everybody what you've been doing, Peter.
No, I don't think they need to know.
Yeah, just briefly.
Joist hangers and repairing ceilings and things, yeah.
And yeah, no, he's really tired, poor man. She's going to sit in the chair quietly. It might be quiet actually and stop chipping in this week, which would be quite different really. Thank you very much, Peter. That's marvellous. So towards the end, David will let us know who our winners are. You don't have to do anything to be entered into the draw. You just have to be a member of Garment Makers Question Time, and then you are all eligible. So, question number 1, David.
I'm looking here. Right, sorry, I'm trying to get my act together as usual. So the first question is from Helen Milford. And Helen said, there's a picture that goes with this, so I'll show you the picture. Helen said, I had this top made to measure in Vietnam. As you can clearly see, it is absolutely no good. Have you any ideas as to what I can do to make it or something useful? Thank you in advance, Helen Milford.
You've started me off with a really tough question there, Helen. We should have put that somewhere in the middle where I'd had a little bit of... No, I have. I've gone through everything and I've looked at all the questions and done a bit of research. So it looks like a very soft fluid fabric. I don't know if it's silk, but it's certainly got a sheen to it and it's very drapey. And it is a nice design. It's got a lovely neckline, which really suits you, Helen. I bet she's thinking, yeah, but it's only the neckline that suits me. Nothing else is working on this thing. Well, the sleeve length is good. The sleeve length looks very nice. Okay, so it appears that there are 2 major areas where this garment isn't working as it should be. So the first one is across...
I'm not sure whether people would have heard
any of that.
I heard bits of it, maybe, yeah. Hopefully you did.
Okay, just check. Did you hear that? Do I need to say it again? Can you lip read?
Yeah, just start explaining about the... Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Make me work hard here, David. Right, okay. So the fabric looks very fluid and obviously is very shiny. You can see that. And I don't know if it's a silk or whether it's a man-made. I can't tell. I mean, you would think maybe from Vietnam that it is a silk. And what I was saying, Helen, was that the neckline looked really nice and the neckline does suit you. And I was also looking for other positives, which is the sleeves are very nice and a nice length. But there are 2 areas where this appears to be, not right, does it? So the first one, across the centre front just above the bust point. So I'm going to ask you to just skip from the picture mode, David, and then come back to it. So it looks like the fullness of the bust is for somebody whose bust point is a little higher than yours, Helen, and so that's why one of the reasons why you are getting all of that kind of yeah, it almost looks like a cowl front, really, doesn't it? Yeah, but the side seams look quite smooth. So I think that there isn't sufficient fabric in there for your cup size, and you know, they may not be used to dealing with Western shapes where we can be quite generously busted. So my first thought on that, which would be a really easy fix, was if you found this centre front, so from the bottom of the V to the bust point, you could ruche that up with elastic. So you could decide where you wanted that to start and finish, and you could cut a piece of elastic that is kind of the measurement that you want plus an inch at each end to get hold of. And you're going to pin that at the top and the bottom and stretch it, and then you can sew it with a zigzag or a triple zigzag that goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and that would ruche up that area, so it would lift it, and then it would give you fullness across the bust like that. So that was my first thing. I mean, I did think about maybe putting sewing some pleats across that area as well, but I don't actually think that that will work as well as the elastic ruche. So that's my first one. And then the second one is the front shoulder, where you've got 2 very distinct pleats created on both sides. Now, you don't mention how the garment feels and whether it feels tight under the arm or whether it is quite comfortable, and we don't know what the back's like. I mean, if you were to get rid of that, you've got to do an awful lot of work. You've got to take the collar off, and you've got to take the sleeve out, and you've got to recut that front edge. So I wondered if the thing to do was just actually sew down those pleats and make a feature of them as if they were part of the design. And so they would kind of make a chevron design if you compared it to the angle of the collar on each side. So I would like you to kind of play with that and see if it's possible. My suggestion is that you base those out, you tack it and you pop it on and you see how it feels. Again, it may be that you could just catch it in areas so that you kind of made a feature of it and caught it. You didn't restrict everything by stitching across the whole thing, but you could maybe put just like a little bar tack in places to hold it. I don't know how kind of dressy you like things to be, but you could get some kind of contrasting fabric, and you could do a little bow at the front in fabric, and then you could put a little bow on each of those areas here, or some little trim or finish just to make it look like it was intentional. So hopefully that gives you something to start playing with. And see where it takes you. But I'm sorry that you didn't. We were talking about this earlier, and Peter years ago had some lovely shirts made in Singapore, and he wore them for years, and they were really fantastic. So next time, go to Singapore, you'll be fine. Okay, off we go. Next question.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is from Regina Hyatt, and Regina has a niece who needs a solo Irish dance dress, and she says, can you recommend a source for the machine embroidery patterns and the rhinestones of various sizes? The pattern suggests a heavyweight zipper, but Regina's thinking an invisible zipper would look better since the back of the costume is also heavily decorated. She says, your lessons have been extremely helpful. I know this is off track of your courses, but I would sincerely appreciate any feedback that you can give me. So Philippa, what can you do for Regina?
Okay, Regina, so we would love to see a photo of your niece next time doing it in her Irish dancing costume or an Irish dancing costume. It's a very exciting thing to make, and how lucky she is to have you to make that for her. So machine embroidery patterns, it is not my area at all. I'm sorry, but I am not a machine embroiderer. So I'm going to suggest you post that in the Facebook group, and maybe one or two people might comment here, and David will have a chance to maybe see those and read them out before the end. But in terms of rhinestones, my suggestion is Etsy. Etsy's a really brilliant go-to for everything, and when I Google them, Amazon has tons of them, but we particularly try not to shop at Amazon if we can possibly avoid it. So I would definitely have a look at Etsy. Now then, so Regina says the pattern suggests a heavyweight open-ended zipper because it's easier to put two separate pieces of zipper into a dress, and I do think that seems like an unusual choice. It's not going to be very comfortable, is it? You know, a kind of heavyweight open-ended zipper is designed for outerwear, so like sweat, you know, jackets and things like that, where it's not next to your body. So I agree and think that an invisible zipper would be much more discreet and also much more comfortable in wear. So I agree with you totally on that. So we await to see the results and any further comments you have on making a solo Irish dance dress.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is from Rosemary Lambert. Now, Rosemary asked a question last time about a wedding dress and cutting out the toile, and she just sent it in a little bit too late for us to be able to answer it. And then she followed that up and said, I fixed that. I've got the answer to that question, but I've got another question for you about the wedding dress. My daughter will need to lift her train off the floor for the evening reception. What is the best way to do it? Do I sew tapes at the base of the zip in the lining with another near the end of the train so that we can hitch it up, or is there a better way? How would you lift up the train for the evening reception?
We don't know the design. I apologise if you sent us an image last month, Rosemary, but we don't have one this month, so it's a little hard for me to know exactly what we're looking at there. But my suggestion is that you don't try to loop the train on the underside of the dress. You make a feature of it on the right side of the dress, on the outside of the dress. I think there are a couple of things I'm going to give you possibilities that you can think about, and then that maybe set you in the right direction. I don't know how heavy the fabric is, I don't know how full the train is, but one thing you can do, you can either sew little loop into one of the seams, and the loop can go over your little finger, or you can put a bigger loop that would actually go over your wrist, and then you would hold it up. The only kind of thing with that is you're a bit kind of, I don't know, you're going to want to dance and you're a bit kind of hindered because you're going to have this extra fabric kind of tied to your arm. So another possibility is to sew some little rouleau loops into the seams at the back, and I don't know whether it's just a centre back seam or whether you could incorporate a couple of these, so one at either side of the back. I mean, don't mean the side seam, I do mean at the back, and then you could maybe put a little covered button at a point on the waist if there is a waist seam, or certainly somewhere that seems suitable, and then you could just button up the train so that it created a lovely kind of not, if you go high it'll be a bustle, if you go lower then it will just be a lovely draped area of the dress. So I think that you can play around with that by getting your daughter to put the dress on and then just pinning things up and seeing where they look best. I think a button is better than hoops, because I think the danger, hooks, the danger of a hook to hold the dress, the train upwards, is that it might slip out, whereas a button, a rouleau loop and button, lovely little covered button, will look very elegant and be more secure. So hopefully that gives you some food for thought there. And again, we need to see the photos, so we don't know when the wedding is, but sometime later in the year. We hope you're going to send us some images, not just of your daughter's dress, but also what you're wearing and any other stunning garments that are there, because we always love to see beautiful clothes.
Okay, so the next question is from Rita Aston, and there's a picture that goes with this one, so I'll put the picture up. And Rita says, if it's not too late, I have a quick question. I'm just turning up the sleeves on a jacket I bought, and it has this mesh-like facing in the cuff. What is it, please, as I will need to replace it because I'm turning up 2 inches.
Okay, so Rita, you look like you're right on trend there, because that's a very nubby tweed, like a Chanel jacket kind of tweed. So, and they are so fashionable at the moment, from the highest end to the most budget brands. So yeah, it's a little hard to see, but it is a fusible interfacing that is giving structure to the hem, and it goes beyond the fold line up into the arm and then all the way to the finished edge at the bottom of the sleeve. So I think any fusible interfacing that has a stretch nature to it will work, because you don't want anything too rigid with that softly woven fabric. So you want a stretch fusible interfacing, or alternatively, I thought you could go with something like a bias cut strip of cotton lawn, which is very fine, and if it's cut on the bias, then it will mould and it won't hold everything too rigid. It'll maintain that nice soft handle. So those are my 2 options. Loads of stretch fusibles on the market. Just do a Google search and you will come up with something. So good luck with that, Rita. Tim's not expecting me to finish.
Short questions, short answers. That's right. Okay, thank you. So the next question is, I was actually teeing up the image for the next question. So we have the image ready. And this is from Sue Anderson, and she says, I'm making a toile for the French Navy, I don't know how you pronounce that, vetiver
Vetiver's a perfume normally, an aftershave.
View A, with the frill around the bottom. I'm using, so this is her toile. I'm using an old duvet cover to make the toile. Philippa's excellent lessons have given me the confidence to ignore the instructions and assemble in a different order, inserting the sleeves before sewing the side seams and doing a French seam when adding the sleeves, which the pattern says not to do despite all the other seams being French seams. Well done you, Susan. My question is about the frill at the bottom. The instructions say to make the frill from a single thickness of fabric, which is hemmed in as shown in view A on the picture there. However, I'm wondering why a folded piece of fabric is not used as in view B, as this will give a neater effect. I'll be using fine cotton lawn, so thought thickness wouldn't be an issue. In the blouse class, Philippa added a frill to the bottom of the top jacket she made, and so I wanted to ask her if she used a single or folded piece of fabric for her frill, and why one method is better than the other. Thanks in advance, Susan Anderson. What a great question, Philippa.
Okay, and two wonderful things there, that yeah, you've got the confidence to do what you think is going to be the easiest for you as you are constructing, which is marvellous, and of course music to my ears, Philippa's excellent lessons. Right, so I got the garment out because I couldn't actually remember what I'd done. It's some time since that class was filmed, and so this is actually a quilting cotton fabric, and it's a fairly robust fabric, which is why this is kind of, is it a blouse, is it a jacket? It could be both, and it has a frill on both the sleeves and on the lower edge, and lo and behold, I have used two fabrics. So I have my printed floral fabric on the outside and I have a plain fabric on the inside, and I've done that for two reasons. The fabric on the inside is a lightweight cotton poplin, and it is finer than the outer fabric. So had I just used a folded piece of outer fabric, I would have had a really quite stiff frill, which might be what you want, but I didn't want it kind of too sticky out on this particular garment, and so the lighter fabric gives me structure but not quite as much bulk. But also, if you're wearing this as a jacket, you get a little flash of the other colour coming through, because there's a pink spot in that fabric, so you've got that lovely little bit of additional detail on the inside. So I absolutely think anything goes. What I am just going to show you is that when I applied that, I put a contrasting bias cut binding over the seam allowance to neaten it on both the lower edge and on the sleeve, which was another nice little detail that you might get a flash of. So I really think it's up to you. Can I just say that in version A, you've done a lovely job of the mitre of the corner there, and it looks beautiful. But I have to say, I do think that version B, where you've got a double folded piece of fabric, is more sophisticated, and it's got more body to it. It just looks nicer, you know. In terms of making, in terms of cost and the actual make, which is the method that you use, it is more costly to do the double folded, and so that is a higher class garment, isn't it? So I would choose to have fabric on both sides, and now maybe you've made you think that you're going to put a little contrast on there. Who knows? But again, we want to know. So thank you for that question.
Okay, thank you, Susan. The next question is from Deborah Peterson, and Deborah says, I'm wondering if a pattern calls for woven fabric, may I use a knit such as a ponte,
Yeah.
A ponte instead of the woven?
Okay, short and to the point there, Deborah. So, but I'll try and make my answer short and to the point. So, ponte, for those of you that don't know, you might Google it and have a look. It is a knit, but it's a really quite heavyweight, stable knit. So it's not super stretchy or fluid. It's almost kind of good for slightly tailored garments. But I don't think that is as easy as you saying, oh yes you can, or no you can't. It very much depends on what you are making and the style of garment. So if it was something really quite fitted and that had suggested a knitted fabric that was going to stretch, then you wouldn't be able to make it in a woven, would you? Because it would you'd never get it on, would you? And if it was a really quite loose fitting garment, it might look great in one knit, but it might look terrible in another one. So I think that you really need to determine what your knitted fabric is, how kind of stretchy it is, how it's going to react when it's worn, and what is the style of garment that you are making, and is there enough ease in the garment for you to be able to do that. So it isn't a very simple question. I think it very much depends on what you are actually doing in terms of the style and in the fabric that you plan to use. So I'm not saying no, and you will find that some patterns say knits or wovens, but I'm just saying proceed with a little bit of caution and really think about it. So, and I was looking for Peter because Peter's French is quite good, and I wanted him to tell us what vetiver actually meant. So if I remember, David, we'll ask him. So Deborah, I know I haven't given you an absolute yes or no answer, but hopefully that's given you a little bit more to think about, and then you can make the decision for your project.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Deborah. So the next question is from Laura Mills. And Laura says, I'm finally getting around to making a robe, presumably with the robe class. She's bought the fabric of viscose ages ago, and it's insufficient for the lesson pattern which she is going to use. And she says, never mind, it will be below knee length with a not so full skirt, and I will have a contrasting collar, cuffs and possibly a belt. She's given us a picture of the fabric, which I've got here, which she's bought. So my question is, what fabric suggestions for the contrast and lining of the bodice? And she was thinking of a cotton lawn to line it, but that won't help with the collar and the cuffs. P.S. she says the tearaway stabiliser is genius.
Yeah, so that's the gowns and wraps class, which is a luxurious nightwear class, and was one of my most favourite classes to do. I absolutely loved it. Made beautiful silk wrap and also one in polyester. And the particular pattern, so Laura doesn't say that she's using the same pattern, but I imagine she is. The skirt of the wrap, the dressing gown, is very full, cut on I can't now remember, a quarter circle, I'm not sure. Anyway, it's very full. If Laura is short of fabric, what she can do, if she wants to, is she can reduce the amount of flare in her skirt, which might enable her to have a longer skirt. So I'm not doing anything to alter the measurement of the waist, but if you take a bit off the sides and you slash up in various places, you can overlap and then reduce the fullness of the skirt. It will still be nice and flared, but it might give you fabric to go a bit longer if you want to. So that was the first thing that I was going to say. Right, what else do I need to answer? Okay, so viscose fabric, it is made from wood pulp. It has properties similar to cotton, but it's not as strong. It's very drapey and soft, so it's going to give a very fluid finish to this garment. So you need to be a little bit careful what you actually use to go with it, because you don't want to kind of give too much structure to such a fluid, comfortable garment. So if you are going to use cotton lawn to line the bodice, my suggestion is that you cut it on the bias, okay? And then it will have some of the quality of the more fluid viscose fabric, okay? So that was that bit. And then you want some answers or some suggestions on what should you use for your contrasting fabric. So you showed us a printed paisley fabric, and so I immediately thought that you need a paisley jacquard, because a paisley jacquard, so that's all just one colour, but you've got the jacquard of the paisley design, would look fabulous, wouldn't it, as a contrast? So maybe in a gold colour or something like that. I think you had a lovely gold in the fabric, or I think there was maybe a dark chocolate or something quite dark. I couldn't see whether it was black or dark chocolate, but you could get a paisley jacquard fabric, and I did a quick Google search, and there's some available on Amazon actually. A lot of it is polyester, so I'm a little bit wary of that, because that's got a totally different kind of fabric to your main viscose fabric. But you should be able to find some kind of paisley viscose or viscose mix, and if you can't find a jacquard, then maybe just a more subtle paisley with maybe just, you know, 2 colours or something like that would be really lovely if you could find it. So that is my suggestion on that. Yeah, as much as possible, if you can, find viscose or a viscose mix to go with your viscose outer fabric. That's going to be your best thing in terms of sewing it, in terms of handle inwear, and in terms of laundry as well. Oh, and pre-wash your cotton lawn before you cut that out. You could also gently pre-wash your viscose as well. I better stop on that one, else I'll just keep going on and on. So it's like reaching to go for the next thing, and then I keep talking. Okay, moving on.
Okay, so the next question is from Linda Gaster, and Linda's got a double question, both about the same dress. So there's an image that goes with the first one, which I'll put up, and it's about the image on the right on this one. She says, I need help with easing in the sleeve on the shift dress. I've picked the seams after 2 tries and started over again. I started my baste stitch from the edge and used a 1/4 inch foot, followed with a second baste. The stitching is set at 4. I think there is still too much to ease and I end up with random pleats. I'm thinking I should try basting closer to the edge with only 1 basting stitch. Your thoughts please on that. So the random pleating there.
Okay, Linda, you have tried really hard, so well done for your persistence, but I think that there is too much fabric in the sleeve head for that armhole in that particular fabric. I imagine that the fabric is fairly robust, it looks like a cotton, and that it's quite crisp and stiff, that it isn't soft and fluid. If you could imagine that you had a really soft fluid fabric, you could ease more of that into an armhole than you can ease a crisper, slightly heavier fabric. So we have the answer for you. If you go to the blouse class or you go to the index on our homepage, the index has all of the pattern alterations in all of the classes. You find the one you want and you click on it, and in the blouse class it tells you how to take fabric out of the top of the sleeve head so there is less fabric, and then you can get the fabric into your armhole. So what you will be doing is, Peter, before you disappear again, what does vetiver mean? That's in the aftershave. And
yeah, I realise what.
Yeah, he's just thinking. I'll just carry on while he's thinking. So this is going to be a funny looking little sleeve head, but anyway, you'll get the idea. So that's a very 1980s man shirt sleeve, but anyway. So what the actual instructions in terms of reducing tells you to do is to skim off. This is roughly, if you skim off like that, you're reducing the amount of fabric that needs to go into the sleeve head. So have a good look at that. My suggestion is that you maybe baste yourself a line before cutting anything off, and then just very quickly just baste that into your armhole before you chop anything off, because I don't want you to go too far. I want you to check it first, and then you'll know whether you need to make any adjustments. So hopefully that will sort you out. Please let us know how you get on. He's now researching it. Good old Peter.
Peter's looking up quickly.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's a grass.
Right.
It's a perennial grass of tropical Asia.
A vetiver is a perennial grass of tropical Asia.
Its oil is used in perfume.
And its oil is used in perfume, and usually in men's aftershave more than perfume, really, isn't it, Peter? Quite a lot of vetiver aftershave. And Peter runs into the bedroom. He would be able to put his hand on a bottle of Guerlain vetiver aftershave, but actually I don't think...
It can be grown as a hedge and used in dryland restoration to reduce soil erosion.
It can be used to planted as a hedge to reduce soil erosion. Right, thank you. Enough of that. Moving on.
We'll do another live on hedges another time. Okay. So the next question from Linda, and I'm not teed up for this picture yet. She's tried on a shift dress, and the back now needs to be altered due to the bust enlargement alteration. I've decided to take in the back darts. Am I headed in the right direction by taking in the darts evenly? It appeared that the inner back was gaping on the inner side of the zipper, not on the outer. I'll put those pictures up now.
Okay, so Linda, same garment then, yes? Second question on the same garment. Right, okay. So I do think that the cross back, so sort of halfway down your back arm, looks too big and you've got a lot of fabric there. But what I also think is that the dress is looking too tight across your back hip. So from your waist downwards, can you see that your zipper is kind of pulling and that there is a flatness to that? Now then, what that is doing is it's making the dress ride up at the back. And so if you look above the waistline, there isn't just excess fabric in the horizontal direction, there is excess fabric in the vertical direction, because that's because everything is pushing up because it's too tight over the hips, and your body's trying to find space in the dress. So the first thing that I'm going to suggest that you do is take out the darts completely and put the dress on again. So we'll just wait for that siren to go past. What you will find, I'm pretty sure, is that when you've taken those back darts out, the dress will drop and it won't have so much fabric, particularly in the vertical direction. And then you'll be able to see more easily what needs to be done to the back. And I imagine that it's a little bit needs to come out of the back armhole. And I don't know whether you want to do this. I think that you might really need to reposition your zip, taking some in at the centre back. But you might get away with a dart more in the upper bodice area and not going down below the waist. You know, just because it's not a conventional position for a dart doesn't mean to say that you can't do that. So the first thing is you are going to take out those darts and you're going to try it on again, okay? And we chatted earlier in the last question about the armhole. Don't do anything with the armhole yet, or the sleeve. I'm just going to backtrack here. If you take the sleeve out and you skim some fabric out of the back armhole, you may not need to reduce the amount of fabric in the sleeve head because you're going to increase the armhole opening a little bit. So I'd be tempted to try that first and baste your existing sleeve back in. Now, David, am I making sense, or are you not listening there? No, he's saying yes. So I didn't know whether he was focusing on everything else. So hopefully that is a starting point for you. Take the darts out first and work from there. And good luck.
Okay, thank you. So hopefully that points you in the right direction there, Linda, with that. The next question is from Liz Deleuze, and Liz is making a new look N6679, which we have here. And she says, my current pattern tells me to attach the shoulder seams and side seams of the bodice and side seams of the skirt, and then insert the invisible zip into the dress once made, before the facing, of course. Isn't it easier, and is it okay to insert the zip into the back of the dress before it is attached to the front skirt and bodice? Hope that you can understand this.
Yes, sorry.
No, I've done you now, haven't I?
Okay, I would always, or I mean, maybe there are occasions when you can't do it, but wherever you can put a zipper in on the flat, it is so much easier than putting the zipper in when you've got shoulders and side seams together. And so I can't see any reason why you can't put the oh, hang on a minute. Oh, but it's in the side seam. No, the dress is in the back, isn't it? Sorry, the zipper's in the back, yeah? So, sorry, I'm confusing myself there. So if the zipper is in the centre back, then yeah, put it in before you join any of the other sections together. David, can we just go back to the image that you just showed? Because I do have something else to say on this. So there are, you can see the red dress has a sleeve with a little cuff on it. And then the longer sleeve version, which is the black and white diagram, there's no cuff on that sleeve. And I was just thinking further about, thank you, David, I was just thinking further about construction sequences in this. If I was making the dress, the black and white version, without the cuff on the sleeve, I would put the zip in, I would join the shoulder seams, and then I would put the sleeve in, and then I would do the side seam. But if I was making the dress that had the sleeve with the little cuff, I would put the zipper in, I would sew the shoulders and the side seam, make up the sleeve and insert the sleeve in the round, because it's going to be much harder to sew the cuff onto that dress once it's all assembled and you've got the sleeve in. So you would have back zipper, shoulder, side seam, sleeve in, and then have to put the cuff on. That would be harder. I don't know if I gabbled a bit on that, but can you see why you might choose a different sequence of work depending on the style that you've got? So all of these things are very valid. So hopefully I didn't confuse you all there, and Liz, that is helpful. And yes, go ahead and do what you thought you should do.
Okay, so now I haven't written down the name of the person who's asked this next question.
That's not the one, but anyway.
I don't think we have Galen.
We do.
We can't see you at the moment. So this next question says, "Hello, Philippa and David. Thank you for your amazing lessons, both garment making and quilting." Well, thank you. "I'm going through the shirt lesson before I make my shirt. I have purchased Simplicity 9707, which is this one here. I will do style B. My question is, can I extend the sleeve placket opening, and if so, how would I do it? I'm also making it in cotton sateen fabric. Thank you."
And that's from, sorry, who's...
I haven't. Oh,
okay, okay.
I will see if I can find it.
Okay, no, don't worry, David. So sorry that we haven't got your name. I do apologise. So the question is, can the opening for the cuff be made longer so that it's easier to get your arm in and out of it? And I had a look at the pattern and I couldn't see any detail. So I only had a look at the envelope online. I couldn't see what the detail was and how the actual opening was made, because it does look quite short on that drawing.
Jackie Peters.
Jackie, thank you. It does look quite short, Jackie, so I can see why you would want to lengthen it. I imagine, although I don't know, but I imagine that that it's a slit into the sleeve, because it appears that the opening is not into the underarm seam, and so I imagine it is a slit that is bound with a strip of fabric. And so if that is the case, all you need to do is cut your slash longer by whatever you want, and then when you cut the strip that's going to bind over that, whatever you added, so let's say that you cut the slash 2 inches longer, 5 centimetres longer, you need to add double that, so 4 inches or 10 centimetres to the strip to give you sufficient to go around that. So that is what I think is going on with that, and absolutely yes, just go for it and be your own pattern cutter. You can do this. So thank you for that question.
Right, I'm just teeing up the next image. Okay, so the next question has an image. This is from, let's get the image up. So this is from Deb Del Nero, who I think we saw her earlier on, so we know she made it. She said she had an appointment and had to drive back from it, so she's managed to get back, which is good. Deb says, "I'm making a sundress for my daughter out of a beautiful hand-painted cotton her grandmother bought in Key West, Florida a number of years ago. The cotton is very high quality, but unfortunately the fabric paint makes it a bit stiffer than one would otherwise expect. I've been able to deal with all the gathering pretty well. I've lined the skirt with a lightweight cotton voile that I will be able to easily hem separately. My question has to do with hemming the skirt. The skirt has a 1/2 inch hem allowance in order to do a narrow hem, as the skirt is quite full. I'm afraid a double fold will make it that much stiffer. I'm thinking a better option might be to sew on a lightweight facing cut on the bias, turn it up and then hem it by machine. My first thought is silk organza, or maybe even the voile I've been using for the skirt lining. I've been using Superior Threads 50 weight, so fine polyester thread, which has worked well. What does Philippa think I should use for the facing, or does she have another idea?" Okay, I think that's it for now. Philippa, what can you say?
Well, it looks really pretty. It's a lovely pattern, and also the fabric looks really pretty as well. So I think you have various options on this. I don't know whether you have an overlocker or a serger, but you could serge the bottom edge and just turn it up by 1/2 inch. And when I do that, what I quite often do is when I top stitch it, I top stitch it twice, so really close to the edge, and then a generous 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch away, so you get a double row of stitching. You've got this pale blue fabric with this white design on it, so you could choose something like a shiny white thread, and so your 2 rows of stitching would be very decorative and pretty in a way that the dress is. So I think that is certainly an option if you have got a serger or an overlocker. Like you, I wouldn't turn it up twice. Sorry, I'm just looking for the question again. But I have got a skirt here, which is this mentioned in, I think it's in a plique class in Quilters Question Time, because it was I'm just going to hold it up. So it's a very full skirt, which is shorter at the front and then longer at the back. And I got a big bag of furnishing, embroidered furnishing fabric, a scrap for £5, which is incredibly cheap. And I cut all the pieces out and appliqued them onto the skirt. In fact, I could wear this weekend, Peter, when we go to Barnsley. Anyway, the shape of it was such, especially because it goes up and then down at the back, was such that it wasn't going to turn up. It is very stiff fabric. Again, somebody gave it to me. It was the most beautiful piece of fabric. I think it's furnishing fabric. And so I cut a bias strip of fabric and I sewed it all the way around the edge. And as I turn it back there, I can see that I've had to join the strip with a 45-degree angle seam. Now, just for kind of not pertinent to the question, but I did top stitch the seam allowance to the facing so that it held it back, and I didn't actually hem it in that sense because there's such a lot of fullness in this. Where the applique was free motioned in place, the hem was already in position before I positioned or placed the motifs. So the stitching that holds this on to the background fabric goes through and holds the actual the facing of the hem in place. And so there are places where the hem isn't held at all, but because there are so many motifs, it is held in place. So it's always about coming up with, what is going to work for the particular garment that you are working on. So those are the 2 things. I would choose one of those, and I think both of them will work really, really well. The overlocking one is less work. The other one is going to take you more kind of work to do. I wouldn't really worry about the scratchiness of it in that sense, because you have got an underskirt in there, you've lined it, and so that's going to be next to the body, so it will be comfortable. So it should be really lovely. So again, we need the photos later on with the lucky recipient wearing the garment.
So Philippa, do you want to talk to us about what that lovely garment is on the stand?
Oh, right, okay. So well, did we ever talk about that one, or did we not talk about that one last time? I can't remember. Anyway, so here is this is the partially finished, but all nearly there. Sorry, I'm falling over the that is the bag with the numbers in. Right, okay, this is partially made Chanel style jacket, which I have made from this Claire Schaefer pattern. And Claire Schaefer is an expert in Chanel garments. She studied them for decades, I think, and unpicked lots of them. In fact, David and I have been doing tons of research, to the extent that we even considered buying a second-hand Chanel jacket so that we could unpick it, but we couldn't find anything for less than kind of £700, so we decided no on that. But anyway, we're still thinking about it. So the actual outer part of the body is 8 panels, 8 panels, and the same with the silk lining. Now this is not completed yet, the lining hasn't been sewn down, but the two plies, the two layers, the lining and the outer fabric, are quilted together to give stability and structure. And so I don't know whether you can see, but there are various quilting lines through this. The hem there has got some interfacing in there, and it goes all the way around the front to give structure. The little bit of lace that I'm sending with the buttonhole thread to our lucky winners, that goes down the front here to hold it. My actual trim is made up of 3 different things. So 2 pieces of this fringing with gimp on the top. And so each of those is stitched on individually. You don't kind of sew it all together and stitch them on, because you wouldn't be able to go around the corners and the curves and make a really nice job of it. And you can see here that the outside frill is obviously bigger than the inside frill. And so what I've done, for example, on here is I've tweezed little bits of the fringing out so that it's not kind of overstuffed at that point. Fully lined pockets, same trim on the neck edge. The collar is actually made just a single piece of collar, so the outer collar just with the interfacing, and then that's stitched on by hand, and then the lining will go over that. And what I've actually got here is a double layer of the silk fabric, the silk lining fabric, which I have quilted together so that I've got a little bit more structure on the inside of the collar, and that will feel really, really lovely and really beautiful. And then I can show you one sleeve which is finished almost, apart from the button trim, and again it has that amazing detail on the cuff, and so that's going to complement the rest of it. So it's been a amazingly interesting garment to make, and loads of wonderful techniques to share with you. And in the class, masses on cutting out plaids and checks and how to match and cutting out the line, just everything that I can possibly think of to tell you, and options that I can think of to give you, is going to be included in this class. So you can tell I'm really enthusiastic about it, and I'm really looking forward to getting it to you. But as I say, we've been filming a long time. It's going to take us a while to get it out, but definitely, really on the way.
Do you want to mention the cologne? Did we mention it?
Oh, right, okay, yeah, no, Peter could only find this one. He couldn't find the Guerlain one, but as you can see, they're all green. The vetiver, oh my goodness, this is the one. This is the one.
That's
right.
just simply your Guerlain collection.
Oh, go away.
Right? Okay.
Don't.
I didn't bring up all the perfumes because I couldn't carry the tray.
Oh, for goodness. Don't embarrass me. Peter's, we lived in Saudi Arabia for many years, and Peter was there before we got married. And the Saudis and the Arabs are very interested in perfumes and scents. And in the town where we lived, there were huge shops, many of them just full of perfume, and they're like very heady kind of oriental scents. There's a particular one called oud, which reminds me of Saudi. Every time I smell it, it just transports me right back. It transports me back to the Shula Centre and the Rashid Mal. Just the scent is so evocative, isn't it? It sparks off so many memories. Just absolutely love that perfume. Right. Anyway, Peter buys lots of perfume, as you can see.
All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this fountain.
Peter's now
Quoting Shakespeare.
quoting Shakespeare to us. So we will move on for now. And the next question. Oh, we've got some comments. We haven't done any comments tonight. We've done a couple. Jill from Rochdale says her husband last week asked her why does she use different material for her pockets, and she said because she can now. So, which is a very good answer. We like that. I love that. Philippa's very tickled by that. And Deb Del Nero says she does have a serger, thank you. So she sounds like she's going to be serging that cotton dress, so that's good. Okay, the next question is from Patricia Jenkins. And Patricia says, I've tried to alter clothes made from recycled polyester. My machine does not like it. I've tried a new needle, different stitches. My Janome works fine on other stretch fabric, but is missing stitches on this. Any suggestions?
Okay, yes, love the pocket, different fabric on the pockets, that's really great. Okay, so Patricia or Pat, you sign yourself as both. I think it's quite likely that the recycled polyester fabric is probably really quite hard, you know, because it's been through even more processes to be manufactured than just new polyester. You do need a ballpoint or a stretch needle which has a rounded tip rather than a sharp tip, and the reason it has that rounded tip is that it's not going to pierce the thread in the knit and cause a run, and also the fact that it's rounded, it'll just last longer because the polyester fibre will tend to blunt the needle, which will cause problems. So you do need a needle. You do need the right needle. It sounds to me as though the needle might be too fine for what you are doing, and that it's skipping stitches because it simply can't cope with the kind of slightly hard nature and the robustness of the fabric. So I would suggest that, as well as getting a ballpoint or stretch needle, same thing really, that you try an 80 or a 90. I don't know what it is you are sewing, and you do also want polyester thread. You need the strength and the elasticity of polyester thread, so Gutterman sew-all type thread. You could try also, I mean, I would try sew-all first because it's really easy to get, but there is this Marrowflex which is also polyester, but it has a very good elastic quality to it, so that might work better for you. I think needles, size of needles and type of thread, and increase your stitch length a little bit as well, because there'll be less friction and just less wear because you take in fewer stitches for in the same length if your stitch length is a little bit longer, and also it gives it a little bit more elasticity. So again, we'd be very interested to hear what makes a difference for you, because that's really useful for everybody else to know. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. That was a good question, Patricia. So the next question is from Sarah Runicles. Hello, Sarah. And Sarah says, would it be possible to investigate slits? The different types, e.g. at the sides of shirts or tops. What is the neatest finishing technique? Patterns always talk about them after the seams have been sewn, leaving an awkward amount to turn under, especially when you've done a French seam finish. Skirt slits pleats are also a bit of a conundrum with overlaps and pleats. Keep up the good work and happy Easter, Sarah Runicles.
Thank you, Sarah, and happy Easter to you as well. So just off the top of my head, a couple of things that might be a good idea with slits. So let's say you're making a blouse rather than a shirt, and you wanted to have a little open vent on either side at the bottom of the side seam. When you are cutting it out, you could add a little step on like so. So this is the side seam, that's the seam allowance, and you could have a little step, and then you could do an open seam. Oh no, I'll press it that way, just I've got printing on one side. So you sew your seam to about that point and you press the seam open like so. You would have finished off this edge, and then you've got a nice little facing there that you can either fold under, or you can just fold back and do 2 rows of top stitching on the right side. So that's one really easy way of dealing with a slit in a side seam of a blouse. I wouldn't particularly do it like that in a shirt. French seams do quite often do a French seam and with a slit in it. And so what I would do is, instead of dealing with the raw edges of the opening after the seam had been sewn, I would do them beforehand. And so I would have my side seam with my 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I would turn in a scan 1/8 of an inch and press it, and sort of press it so that it goes straight and then it flanges, and then I would do the same again. I know this is paper, but I would do the same again, so just a very narrow double folded hem for this slit or opening like so. Stitch really close to the edge, and then you can make your French seam as normal, and you will have a really neat little opening. I think you should just try that one out first and just work out the actual turnings on the initial little hem for the opening, but do that first and it will work. It sounds like you want me to do a whole new class just on vents and things, which is possible, but let's get this one out of the way first.
Yeah, I think at the moment, if we ask Philippa for any new classes, well, there aren't going to be any forthcoming. So we'll wait about asking for classes for a little while longer. So we've got a comment come in from Pat Jenkins. She says she was using a 70 needle with polyester thread and a round needle. So I don't know.
Bigger
you suggest
size.
Slightly bigger needle, maybe
Yeah,
it
try
might
an
do the
80 and
trick,
a
and a longer
90.
stitch length. Okay. Now the next question is from Maggie Warman, and this is a new one, new question we haven't had before. I sometimes find that when making a knit T-shirt, if there is a lowered round neck, i.e. lower than a crew neck, and the pattern piece for the band is a straight piece, the band sometimes does not sit well at the folded edge as it is too long, even allowing for the stretch when the band is a shorter length than the neck edge measurement. In such a case, is it better to shorten the straight band even further or to cut a curved band? What do you think, Philippa?
I think that there are various things that you could do, and it very much might depend on the fabric and how stretchy it was and also how thick it was. I think it's not so much to do with the length of the band that you're stitching around that neck edge, but more to do with the width of it. So the wider the band is, the more it's likely to do what we call roping and twist, and if it's narrower it's less likely to do that, but you could use the band instead of having it as a kind of visible thing. You could have the band as almost as a facing, so you could overlock the outer edge, sew it on singly, right sides together, and then turn it to the inside and edge stitch it, and you could have it like that, or you could just leave a little bit visible, almost so it looked like a piping really on the right side, fold it back to the underside and then edge stitch in the crack of the seam. And if that was quite narrow, I don't think that would roll. And then I think the other possible thing to do is to actually make a separate facing, so replicate the neckline on a new pattern piece and create a separate facing that is going to go all the way to the inside, and so you're not going to have any visible band on the outside of the garment, and then that will definitely lay flat. And again, depending on what you were doing, you might put a stretch interfacing onto the facing. It might not need it if your fabric is quite robust, or it might be that you use something like this really skinny, quite soft lace instead of a tape around the neck, or maybe just the back neck, or where it's going to be kind of under most pressure to take some of the strain. So I think there are lots of things that you could do, and it's more about width than length. So hopefully that's helpful, and again, let us know what you decide to do and the results that you get.
Okay, so last couple of questions and a comment. The comment is from Michelle Wellen, and I'm sure a few other people will agree with her. She says that she's very grateful everything stays in the library because I make things more than once. Well, thank you for that, Michelle. That's why we've arranged things the way we have, so that once you've got a class, then you get to keep it in your library and come back to it as often as you want. So thank you for that. Okay, now the next question is from Rose Ward. And Rose says, on Philippa's recommendation, she bought a straight stitch plate for her Bernina 440 QE. However, whilst the sewing starts off fine, after 12 inches or so, it just stops. The threads jam and the work won't feed through, so she has to revert to another stitch plate. Can you think of any reason why it might do this?
I am stunned. I have no idea. I have never heard of this before, and it grieves me greatly because a straight stitch plate is the most marvellous addition to your sewing kit. So what can I think of? I mean, your 440 is a machine of a certain age. You've had it quite a while, so it's not one of the newer, most really kind of, oh wow, that's too sophisticated for its own good type of sewing machine. Sometimes the sewing machine won't work if you don't close up the door that the bobbin goes into. It just won't, for a safety reason, and it will cut out and stop. But I don't imagine that is the case with your sewing machine because of the age of your sewing machine. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I don't know on your sewing machine whether you have the ability to tell it which stitch plate you are using. On my sewing machine, one of them, not this one, it's a slightly newer one than this one. If I don't tell it which stitch plate I am using, it will not sew. It refuses to sew. It's a safety thing. It's to stop you trying to do something like zigzag when you've got the straight stitch plate on and you would just smash a needle. So I don't know whether you have to tell it that, and after some point it's recognising that you haven't told it that. There's also the magic eye, which on some of your feet is the little, sorry, I'm just going to reach for one, is this this kind of sensor here, and I wonder if the machine is picking up something and it's not liking it. You know, there's some error in the setup, or in its I don't know, in its memory, or in its brain, that it's not allowing you to do that. Have you got any thoughts on that, Peter?
We've got a comment from Deb Del Nero. She says she has a QE440. She had the same problem, and it was the timing that was off. She says it's time to bring it in for servicing.
Brilliant. Okay, so there you go.
So exactly the same problem.
That's because I've never heard of that before. So that's actually okay. It's going to cost you a bit of money, but in that sense, it's once you know what. Timing, and that will help with all your sewing anyway, which is great. So Deb, thank you very much for that. So yeah, but those things might be pertinent to people with other machines anyway. So yeah, well, brilliant, fantastic that you asked it, and Deb was able to help you.
Okay, so we're on to the final question, and this is from Emma. Emma, I've only got your first name on here, I'm afraid, but you say, I'm working through the course now and I'm loving it, though I'm very pregnant, so I'm working through in the wrong order based on what I can make that will fit me both sides of pregnancy. I'm making a Marnie blouse from Tilly and the Buttons, and we've got an image of that, I hope. I've mocked up a toile today upon your advice, which was a good idea, as I found the back yoke seam feels a little tight and I can't move my arms freely without the top feeling like it doesn't fit right. The issue is not replicated at the front, and I'm happy with where the shoulder sits. The rest of the garment is so loose it can fit my 29-week bump in, so I might take that in a bit. Taking in garments seems much easier to me than extending them out, and I'd love some advice. How can I create more space without distorting the garment? One alternative would be to make the neck size up at the top and grade it to a smaller size at the bottom, I suppose. And that's from Emma.
Well, I have a multitude of things to say here, Emma. I imagine, well, first of all, congratulations. But I imagine that this is a first baby, because if you've already got a toddler, you haven't got time to sew. That's the first thing. And also, you're not going to have time to sew afterwards for quite some time. And I know everybody kind of jokes about it and tells you to be prepared. But when you've got a little baby, if you can get out yourself and the baby out of the house by 10 o'clock, you are doing really well. Really, really well. So get all your sewing done now. You've got about 11 weeks left. So what can I say on the fit? First of all, the image, this is not designed as a garment for pregnant ladies. This is just designed as a fashionable garment. And so the two ladies that you see there, we imagine don't have a baby. We don't know, tucked away in there. But I think that is, so it's meant to be a loose style, as you see there. Now, I don't know whether you're making the one with the frill at the shoulder around the arm, or whether you're making the one with the plainer sleeve, because that might kind of affect the fit a little bit. But sometimes your arm, the movement is restricted because the armhole is too big. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but this isn't really that tight. But the higher the armhole is, the more movement you've got. If the armhole is a bit big and low, it restricts restricts your movement. So it might not be that it's in that sense too big, it just might be that the armhole is too low, and I can't think where we've got an alteration for that, so you need to look in the index on the home page for that, so just do be aware of that. What I'm going to say to you is that, you know, yeah, you want fullness at the front to allow for your bum, but also once you've had the baby, if you're feeding the baby yourself, you're not going to be back to your normal size for quite a while really, so you might want all that fullness at the front, and I think it might look a bit odd if you kind of have fullness and then you taper it down towards the lower edge. It's going to look a bit unbalanced. It's better if it's gathered and falls straight down, or even slightly A-line. I think the fabric that you choose is going to make the biggest difference. And so if you go back to that pattern, that picture, sorry David, can we just nip back to it? I know the two ladies are very different, but it looks to me as though the pink fabric and the blouse is a crisper cotton, and that the dress fabric looks like a more fluid viscose. If you make it in viscose, it's going to kind of drape more, and it's going to be closer to your body because it's softer and more fluid than if you choose a crisp cotton. And that is true whether it's now or when you've had the baby. You know, the cotton is going to be crisp and stand out whatever size you are. The viscose, the fluid viscose, is going to conform much more to your shape. So I think your choice of fabric is quite crucial to what you do there. Oh, and that was my other thought. It is quite a longish thing. You could make it a little bit longer. You could make it more tunic length. And then I thought that you could sew a little fabric tie. You get a bit of extra fabric, make a little tie, sew it in each side seam at the waist, and then you could tie a loosish bow at the back, and you could just have it as a decorative thing when you've got a bum. But when your bum is out into the world, you could tie it a little tighter, and that will give a little bit of shaping and structure to the back, and maybe help to make it feel less full. So I think you should just go for it and try and get it made fairly quickly, and enjoy wearing it before and after, and be proud of what you've produced in terms of the blouse and the baby.
Okay, so that was the last question. We've just got a couple of comments on the straight stitch plate with the 440 QE. Anne Snellgrove has said she loves her 440 QE. She uses a straight stitch plate. There's no need to indicate the plate you're using, and she said it might be the time when it might just need a good cleaning and oiling. And Deb has said again that she's got 4 Boninas, and the 440 is the oldest and her favourite, and well worth getting it fixed. So I think Peter's got the winners for us now.
Thank you for those comments. That's really helpful.
And the lucky winners are Dorothy Ainsley and Patricia Holroyd.
Yep, marvellous. So, Dorothy and Patricia, you will be able to practice your hand-sewn buttonholes to your heart's content. So David will get in touch and find out your postal address, and we will get your gifts sent off to you once we've got those. So, fab questions, everybody. Great variety. Lots of really interesting things for me to answer. I hope you found them really interesting to listen to and watch about. From all of us here, we wish you the happiest Easter. We hope you have a wonderful weekend doing some fun things with the people that matter to you. And we will be back again at the end of April with more of your questions, and we'll let you know how the editing is going on for the Chanel jacket class. I'm kidding. We're hoping to have it edited by then. Okay, everybody, from all of us here.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.